okay, so we have fascism, and then everyone's on the same page, but then we got some little static people who are like not okay with it.
Yeah. Over time.
As long as you keep getting
over time.
Yeah, but as long as you keep just like getting rid of those people, then like
you mean you're talking about Cuba?
All right, we're ready. That's it. We're going. Action. So, Delfina.
Yes. That's my name.
As you know, Tony abandoned us today.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that guy.
It was supposed to be, you guys know this, of course, but for those at home, it was supposed to be Tony and Delfina were supposed to come back, and we were going to tackle this. We started this. A whole other aspect of the irony is that you are also ARC, but this is a different ARC, and we were going to talk about this ARC forum thing, and then Tony bailed, but Dan luckily has very little to do.
Second string
in his life.
Thanks a lot.
String, yeah.
Appreciate that.
And so we want to get into that now. In the last exciting episode, when we looked at what ARC forum is all about, and we sort of contemplated, these are some really great ideals. We love the fact that it's not playing on the continuous pessimism and everything is a disaster and we go from crisis to crisis. And if you watch the World Economic Forum, so I'm a glutton for punishment, and so on Twitter and Instagram I do follow the World Economic Forum, and
I do too,
because I just want to see what they're saying. I don't agree with it most of the time, but I want to see what they're saying.
You got to see what they're saying.
But if you believe what they're saying, then you're going to want to slit your wrists after about 2 weeks because it's so dire. It's done in really nice colors and fonts and things, but the message is really dire. So these guys, ARC Forum, are saying, well, maybe there's a more optimistic view of what we can do with the world and with humanity. And so we were contemplating, sounds good. Is it just generally speaking, is it achievable? Is it, or is it too idealistic? And then we wanted to get into these questions. They have on the ARC website, they have not your ARC website, but the other ARC website.
There is another.
There is another ARC.
An inferior ARC website, not the superior ARC website.
Not the ARC, not the special ARC website.
Special ARC website.
But the regular.
No robots.
On the ARC forum, they have these questions that they're asking the world. Say, share with us your answers to these questions about what we can do to make the world a better place. And so for today, though, we can't tackle all these questions in one episode, but which we learned last time when we didn't even get through the introduction in one episode. But I wanted to go to question 4.
Which is near and dear to my heart.
Mr. Producer, I would like to go to question 4, please. Question 4. There we go. It is. And Dan is what is it you call yourself?
Unrepentant global free market capitalist.
Unrepentant global free market capitalist. I'm not so sure about the global part. We differ, but I'm good on all the other things.
I like all people.
Yeah, I guess. So here's question number 4: free enterprise and good governance. Now the people at home are seeing this as well. So
okay.
So, but I'm going to read it anyway. How do we govern our corporate, social, and political organizations? How do we govern our corporate, social, and political organizations so that we promote free exchange and abundance while protecting ourselves against the ever-present danger of cronyism and corruption?
I'm just glad they acknowledge that the free market creates abundance, because I agree with that completely. So,
but not everybody agrees.
But that's not up for discussion, because they've already stated it.
I think that's part of the answer to the question.
Because not everybody agrees with you on that the free market promotes abundance. A lot of people today, I'm learning from the social medias, a lot of people really, it appears, really, truly, honestly believe that the free market favors the people who already have and unfavors the have-nots.
Yes, that is their perspective.
Yeah.
I travel enough and work in enough other countries and with enough other systems to know that ours is working the best.
Yeah? You think?
I work in Russia, I work in China, if I can name names.
Okay.
Yeah. We're both obviously global travelers.
Yeah. So that's the anecdotal evidence, right? Which is which people have said. We've heard people say before, like, I've been in other places and they suck compared to what we got going on here. But if we tackle this, here's the first thing I thought of when I look at this question is, if you look at it just kind of academically, is, well, the question they're asking here is a question that, like, we, human civilization, has been trying to crack that nut, like, at least as far back as the Athenians, who first tried to do direct democracy. And there's different views about whether that worked or not. I'm mainly of the opinion that it didn't work very well. But you can't say, even though our system may be working than other people's, better than other people's, you can't say that we don't have cronyism and corruption, because we do. And you can't say that we don't have problems, because we do. But the question that they're asking, my first thought is, well, shit, people have been trying to figure this out for, like, at least 2,500 years.
That's why we have bad guys, good guys. We have police. My simplistic view is live by example. We should reward effort and punish corruption.
So who's going to do the rewarding and the punishing?
The free market system will reward those that work hard.
So your answer to the question, how do we govern our corporate, social, and political organizations, is we really don't have to govern them, because the free market will take care of that.
Obviously not.
What do you think?
Well, I actually think that this is not, you cannot answer this question in a universal manner. I think that you've got to start with the environment within which you are trying to attack this problem. If you're going to have this discussion and say, how do we govern our corporate, social, and political organizations in the United States of America, so that we promote free exchange and abundance, blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
that answer is going to be dramatically different than if you ask, how do we govern in Venezuela or Russia or some...
Why should it be different, though?
Because
why wouldn't the same principles or same mechanisms?
Different cultures.
Why wouldn't the same mechanisms work?
We've got to institute a better culture, and these are different cultures. And ours isn't necessarily the best, but it's different.
Well, I think it's the best, but that's okay. It's a matter of opinion.
I work in Peru, and my contact down there, he says, if you don't pay bribes, you don't eat. And I thought, well, you got a friend that just proved you wrong, because I don't pay bribes, and yet I'm selling in Peru.
But you're not eating in Peru.
Oh, yeah, I eat in Peru, too.
So...
I've never paid a bribe. I've been asked for bribes many times.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer, if we were going to, if we were sitting down with the folks who were asking this question, because they're trying to put forward this platform that says, how do we take a better, optimistic, thoughtful approach to improving the world, right? And your first, and what you're saying is kind of what gets into the reason why I disagree with Dan sometimes on this global bit, is because
you're protectionist.
No, because I don't think it doesn't. Things seem to work better on a smaller scale, so that you can adjust what you're doing and solve the problems of. Everybody likes to use Norway or the Scandinavia as the example of how, a government that's kind of socialist and takes care of people and whatnot, and can, and has healthcare for everybody. But there's only 5 million people in Norway. You're not trying to solve the problem for 200 million people or for 1 billion people. You're solving it for something the size of Houston. That's a different problem to solve. And as soon as you start trying to say, what's a system that works for everybody in all places under all conditions, it becomes problematic.
It's not reasonable. It's not reasonable. I mean, are you trying to create a nirvana? Well, if you are, go with God, because you're not
Klaus Schwab, because he's got to figure it out.
But if you really want to make any sort of progress, then you've got to take a look at it on a micro scale and not a macro scale. And additionally, I don't think that it is acceptable for those of us that live in a society like we have here in the United States or other first world nations to try to impose, to force our cultures, our norms, our ways of doing business on other communities where their underlying cultural constructs are completely different from ours. You have to meet people where they're at. You can't just come and impose your views and your ways of doing things onto others. One of the examples I love to use is, everybody that knows me knows that I've spent a lot of time south of the border working in Mexico. And they kind of do things a little bit less above board than we do here.
No.
Because it's rewarded.
Because, well, it's rewarded, but don't let me forget that piece. But I remember going down there and I was working with one of the assets, their largest asset, working with their engineers.
Explain that this is oil and gas because it sounds like you might be working for the CIA.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Not human assets.
Sorry. Oil and gas.
Got it.
And very good point. I'm not working with the CIA.
So this asset, go ahead.
And they got really frustrated with me one time, and they said, Delfina, we need to know how the Americans do it. You have to teach us how the Americans do it. And I looked at them and I said,
faster.
You guys aren't getting it. This is how an asset, an operation, an upstream production operation is run in the American world, right? The American way of doing things,
right.
And the first world way of doing things. And I sketched it out for them. And I put together the entire, the org chart and how they do it. And I said, what does that look like for you guys? It takes them this number of people to do all of this work, and it takes you guys this number of people to do that work.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you guys are stupid? No. It means that your company has different goals than an American company does. Your organization is supposed to provide jobs for the people of the country. That is a remit of your national oil company. So having all of these people doing all of this different stuff creates a lot of unnecessary work, but it's because it's a different goal. I said, additionally, you guys have to survive where there's corruption. Everywhere you look. You guys have to survive and thrive within a community where you must transport drugs in your fuel vehicles. You don't have a choice. If not, the cartels are going to get your ass, right?
Yeah.
You can't take the American ways of doing business and say, oh, well, that's better.
Yeah. Yeah, I see.
They have different challenges that they're dealing with.
We have people lament that we have corruption here, but I think they don't really know what real corruption looks like.
Exactly. They don't completely understand.
And it's not just, it's lots of places, right? You could talk about places in Western Africa, and you could talk about, places in Washington, D.C. No, wait, did I say that?
Yeah.
Dan, you look like you're thinking something.
Please.
Always. But you just got to live the example, and we had a shipment to Brazil, and they opened the crate and left it outside in an effort to get a bribe. We refused.
Yeah.
It cost us money having to rebuild the machine after it got waterlogged, but you can't go down that rabbit hole.
So, okay.
I don't disagree.
But this is an interesting turn because the question is, how can we govern everything so that we don't have this ever-present danger of cronyism and corruption? And what we're saying here is, well, the corruption exists, so you can't really
You got to show them an alternative. Show them an alternative. You can still win without paying bribes and being corrupt.
But my point is this. You as an international businessman have the absolute freedom to do business there or not do business there. You have the freedom to work with those people or not with those people. The people within that community and within that environment don't have that same freedom of movement. Yeah. They don't have the ability to walk away from that. They have to live within that environment. So I'm not saying that you have to go along with corruption or that you should go along with corruption. What I'm saying is that if we're going to answer this question, we have to do it on a less macro basis.
What do you think?
I can only affect what's immediately around me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
but I agree with what he's saying. What he's saying is that personal leadership, personal behavior, personal, what's the word I'm looking for? Principles. Principles.
Yeah.
You have got to show that as you are doing business. And it starts with us as individuals to lead and put that best foot forward and not allow ourselves to be corrupted. I completely agree that is absolutely a first step.
And show people you can still make it without. That your value to the world is not the bribe you pay, but it's the job you do. And that's why I'm adamant about it. And the same thing, it's all these cultural differences. For example, there's a few countries that I work in where people assume that you can't have a win-win deal. And after a few jobs with me, they finally realize we can. We can both win.
We can both win.
Right. But initially, the negotiations are brutal. I've walked out of offices. I was in one place. I walked out and stood in the snow, and fortunately they came out and got me and brought me back in. But because I wouldn't even know where the airport was. But it takes a few times, but you can finally prove to people.
Deal? You're right.
That was Chinese.
Oh, China.
No, that was China.
Yeah.
But
I've had similar situations where I've been brought into meetings and very high up, and sitting down and having closed door conversations. And all of a sudden, the conversation just kind of goes in a way where I'm not playing along with this. And I get up and walk out. It's like, I'm sorry.
You got to do that.
And they come running after you. And I'm like,
yeah, I've done that.
But in my case, I finally got a couple of groups in a few different countries to believe that you can have a win-win. Because you can. That's called the free market system.
So there's an interesting thing that's happening here. Is because we're asking this question to ordinary people like us and not pundits and whatever. The answer that we're coming back with is because the question kind of asks, well, what sort of a system should we have, right? In short, if I just condense it down, it's a question about a system, whether it's a system for how you govern politics or how you govern a corporation, and we like to have all these arguments in the public square about the system ought to work this way, or the system ought to work that way, or the system is rigged against these people, and system might mean government, might mean corporate, the corporate world might mean whatever, and so the question says, what's a better system? And the answer that we're giving is the solution isn't in the system. The solution is in
the culture
and the people who. So certain people need to be a good example and need to show other people this is how it could be. It's about improving people's virtue, ethics. More, that's kind of what we're.
So let me see if I can put a little bit of structure around this, taking what you're saying, agreeing with what you're saying, but also put it in a consumable and implementable manner. When you're talking about,
we rely on you for that.
Thank you. At least I know my
I'm the ideas now. Man.
She translates.
I'm a get her done sort of person. So governance, there's three components to governance, right? Oversight and accountability, roles and responsibilities, metrics and rewards.
Okay, let's review. Oversight and accountability.
Oversight and accountability.
Yeah.
Roles and responsibilities.
Yeah.
Metrics and rewards.
Rewards.
Okay? So we started talking about, within oversight and accountability, that's kind of your leadership piece, right? Who is responsible for, who has the oversight of whatever it is that's going on, and who's accountable for making sure that things get done. You then have to have whoever is in the mix clearly understand what their role is and what the responsibilities are. Be clearly defined. And then, how do you measure people's behavior, not just performance, but their behavior, and then how do you reward that? So within that mix,
Right.
let's say it's an incredibly corrupt environment. People are driven by how they are measured, regarded, and rewarded. And measurement does not have to be, okay, oh, Sully, Dan, you've got to produce 3 widgets and you've got to produce 5 widgets. And if you make that number, that's not just what metrics are about, how people are measured. People are also measured by their rank, their status, what other people think of them, right? That measurement may not be
Their
hard.
social credit.
There should be, right? Could be there. There's people.
Well, we know because the cameras and the microphones in the houses. That's how we keep track of that sort of thing.
There you go. But so that how people are measured, they will get a reward from their behavior based on how they're measured.
So
right?
this is, but if we're applying this to the how we want to make the world a better place, it's a little Pavlovian, right? Like.
What do you mean?
Like, if you like conditioning behavior, right?
Yeah.
Like if you reward like that, like
Yes.
like I ring the bell and the dog comes for the
Yes.
food, and so you're saying that we really just kind of need to take that sort of carrot and stick, approach.
Yes, but what I'm suggesting is that what we might
That leaves
traditionally-
individual responsibility out of it a little bit, right?
Absolutely not.
No.
No. How does that leave personal responsibility out of it?
Well, you're still personally responsible for a certain thing, for, the desired behavior, but
You still have to deliver on your responsibilities based on the role that has been defined for you. Right?
so, right.
And it is incumbent, you still have the responsibility, and it is still incumbent upon you as an individual to either live up to those measurements to achieve the reward that you want.
Okay.
You're not just going to be handed a reward because you exist.
Yeah, so let me, to me, at least where I come from, the way I think about life is I principally want to be left alone.
Okay.
So, I want to, I'll figure out my shit for my life. I'll be accountable for that. I'll be responsible for that. And, you should.
You
do
will
the
be
same.
rewarded for
And
that.
I don't yes, but not directly from someone else's hand. I'll be rewarded because I'll do the work and I'll get what the work produces.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of bleeds into the debate or the differences of views of what takes precedence? Is the individual the most important thing, or is society? Does the individual exist for society, or does society exist for, which one are we putting in the forefront? Because this is a historical debate, right? Like in Greco-Roman times, they believed that the society was the main thing, and individuals played a part in society, and you had that kind of reward and punishment thing. And then in the days when they were, in the early days leading up to the American Revolution, they had a different approach, a different thought, which was individual liberty is the main thing, and society needs to stay the hell out of the way, and we need to let everybody live their own individual life.
You just made my point. Sorry.
We're talking about individuals here. And so we got to you got to start young. If you're going to change culture, you got to change the kids. And so the kids got the wrong role.
Apparently we are trying to change them all kinds of ways right now.
Well, you're giving them the wrong role models. You got the gangsters, You know, you got the people that are doing the wrong thing that are the role models. So we need to have more positive role models. You know, that's the free markets. Oh, here we're back again. You know, where, you know, like you need role models that have worked hard, created companies, and been rewarded for it. And the people that are corrupt and criminals need to be shamed and punished. And then let the kids watch this.
Dan, that's hate speech.
Call it what you want. You can call me Ray. You can call me Jay.
Punish criminals? Hate speech.
But you're making my point for me.
Yeah, so how...
You're making my point exactly.
Explain to me how I made your point.
What you said was there are schools of thought that say the individual is the most important. Mm-hmm. And then there's schools of thought that society is more important. My point is exactly that. Whatever it is that you're working within, you then devise, because the question is, how do we govern? You devise your governance structure within the context of the cultural, Dan's word, the culture, the cultural environment within which you are attempting to affect change or survive and thrive, etc. What I'm saying is what we need.
So yeah, I guess when you were describing it before with the reward and everything,
it changes based on what
I'm envisioning kind of some sort of like governing body that says, here's your reward, here's your punishment, here's your, you know.
Oh, central planning. That doesn't work well.
Central planning. Yeah. But really what you're saying is it just comes out of like the natural results of it's not me saying, Delfina, you were a good girl, you contributed to society, here's your reward. It's coming sort of organically out of what you produce. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that when you go about thinking about the problem, you've got to break it down into those three components.
Yeah, fair.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that gives you a way to start figuring out if you're trying to solve it within, again, back to my original point, which you can disagree with, which is it's not one size fits all. You take a look at the environment, the culture within which you're trying to affect a change. You're trying to promote that leadership or some sort of, better way of doing things, less corrupt, less cronyism, whatever. And within that context and with that environment, you can create that. And Dan even made the point. He said that
he does occasionally, once in a while.
He's a good guy. No, but he made the point in saying that as he put forth the leadership required when he went into a different cultural environment than what we're used to here, and found a way to make things, to show what a win-win looks like.
Yeah. Now the question then is, have any of your, I was about to say pupils, but the people that you,
I call them my victims.
The people that you, has anybody seen that, saw what a win-win looks like, and then said, hey, we could do that again. We could replicate that.
Oh yeah, and the second negotiation's easier than the first.
Great point.
And then I brought, and 3 of the Peruvians came home with me, and one of the Russians. They liked the system.
That explains the llama in your office.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have one of the
just a little toy llama?
Oh, okay. I thought you had one. Never mind.
They also taught him how to say llama.
Okay.
But here in America, we say llama. We say llama.
Yeah, they would have spelled it with a Y if they wanted to.
Yeah, damn right. Just like Llano. Mm-hmm. Llano, Texas town. All right, Trev, you got anything on this?
What? Trev, are you awake?
He's awake. He better be awake. He's got to switch the cameras and shit.
I'm always awake.
Okay. I think you caught him off guard.
I was doodling.
Doodling.
because you're the target audience. We're going to try to fix the young ones because they're going to be old ones. Right now, you're not in power, but one day you will be. And if you set a good example then your children will be good. That's how you change culture. But there has to be an opportunity. And right now, we're not punishing enough people. I'm kind of proud of Illinois, of all places. They put a lot of their governors in jail. And that's good.
Alrighty then.
Well, Dan says, and kind of what the rest of y'all are alluding to is, if you want to change the culture, if you want to do this, but figuring out what system works. Is there one universal system, or are there basic principles that you can apply to create different systems depending on the culture? But my question would be, what is it that I think it would be better to identify what it is you want to change, because then that would bring you
what you
to
want the outcome
solution. Yeah.
What are we trying to achieve here?
The concept of fairness is universal, and that's all you really need to do. If you're doing something that's unfair,
like a quagmire.
Yeah.
No, it's that easy. Do unto others.
What about so I would substitute the word liberty for fairness.
Okay. I could get on board with that.
But fairness is how we interact with each other. In Texas we say, don't do no deal you wouldn't give or take either side of. That's kind of like the golden rule, but in Texan language. And that's all you have to know. And if paying a bribe, that's not fair. Okay, so it's literally boils down to that.
You're talking about fairness, but really, you're saying fairness, but it's really justice.
Cronyism is not fairness.
Right, it's justice is really what
Corruption's not fairness, so don't do that.
Yeah. So there's one connotation that's very popular in current culture of fairness, which is more like, in the context of privilege and helping, giving people something that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's not fair.
But you're talking, but you're using a more classical definition or connotation
of
fairness,
others,
which is really more about justice, right? About balancing the scales and having the right judgment in a particular.
And to implement that, you need a carrot and a stick. So
who carries the carrot and who in the stick?
Well, and in Illinois,
the carrot and the stick.
Well, the system is in charge of the carrot. If you work hard, you're rewarded, and the stick has to be the state.
So, but to what level do you make things fair?
All levels. I try to be fair in all my transactions.
Well, for example, what do you mean, Trev?
So, socially or culturally, you want to set people up for success, but how much fairness do you grant everyone? Because if you want to really, because fairness, implementing fairness, you have to, or allowing for fairness, everybody has their own unique privileges and setbacks.
I'll mow your grass for $5, or you can mow my grass for $5. That's fairness. It's a flat, equal.
But that's just on the transactional level. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has.
Well, what you're saying is
so
how much...
Okay, so does that mean you give everyone the exact same lawnmower? Do you give everyone the exact?
They have to go earn their own lawnmower.
Yeah.
But you're getting into implied accountability for other people's outcomes, right? So how much so how there's this line between making everything fair, like you said, on a transactional level, and then getting into, well, we need to adjust things to make it because certain people have been at a disadvantage. So now somebody else needs to take accountability for their outcome to.
But I don't think that's what Dan's saying.
No, I don't think
no,
that's not.
You're trying to unlevel the playing field. That's the opposite of what I want to do.
Well, no, but I think what we're saying is there's a prevailing way of thinking in society right now
that I disagree with.
That you disagree with. That says, is that what you're getting at, Trev?
Well, so if you want to level the playing field, what parts? how far do you bring certain people up, and how far do you bring certain people down?
They bring
Certain
themselves
people
up.
have born privileges. Should those be revoked? Which one should be revoked? If people have everyone has certain drawbacks, should those all be accounted for by the people who are privileged? But then if you're going to do that, how do you set the standards, and who is setting those standards?
Well, being an entrepreneur, I talk to a lot of people, and we're in 33 countries, and this is a conversation I have with a lot of them, and they say that what I've done, I bought a welder, put it in my garage, and built a company with 60 people working in 33 countries. Only in America can you do that. So we've already got the system in place. We reward hard work, and I'm living proof. When I started my company, my dad was dead, and I had a $1,000 TIG welder. That's all it took. If that's privilege, then
Yeah.
it doesn't take much privilege.
So then if someone wants to go in the same field as that or compete there, if it was going to be fair, then they should they be given the same equipment that you had?
I worked a second job at night welding gas tanks to buy that welder. They can go get a second job.
Yeah.
That's the free market system. I'm living the dream.
Yeah, so it's the fairness. One way you could look at it is the level of fairness is up to the individual.
No, it's a level of, it's whatever reward you want. You can either lay on the couch or you can go work at night and weld gas tanks and buy a TIG welder.
So it's up to you. It's up to you to make it.
I love this system, but there's no other country that you could do this.
Yeah.
None.
So
So like that principle, you could take. Do you think that's like universally applicable to then all countries?
yeah. Okay. So coming back to the question of how do we arrange things such that it works better? Can we take that principle, which by the way,
not system,
which by the way, I think devil's advocate aside, I think we all agree that it's clear that has made that approach of going back to the same thing I said, which is individual responsibility. I'm gonna do the work and figure shit out and make my way in life. That's what you're describing, right? It was only I'm going down two different trains of thought. So coming back to the question, can we take that principle and go around to other parts of the world and say, listen, everybody, here's how you can make things work better for everybody in this part of the world?
No.
No.
Well, we load at Arc Specialists. We load everybody up on an airplane. We'll fly 100 people to Mexico, and I tell them, when you're in a foreign country, you are representing the United States of America, and you will do it well. And so that's all you can do is live by example. And
Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag. Yeah.
But I agree with him.
I pledge allegiance to the free market system.
So
Of the United States of America.
Not anyone. I'm all over the world.
well, but this is interesting, right? Because this is something that a lot of what I would say traditional Americans, that means the older ones of us, we typically like to, that frequently is our answer to a lot of society's woes, right? Is, well, you just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go get it done, right? Like you need to take accountability, you need to work hard. And we see there is, this is a whole different episode, but I do see there's sort of an allergy to work that's beginning to develop in this country.
Oh, yeah.
But that tends to be our answer.
Yeah, and it's not correct.
So why can't we just?
Because there are certain harsh realities of people in third world nations that no matter how entrepreneurial they might be, how hardworking they might be, how not desperate, I don't want to say the word desperate, how dedicated they might be,
right,
how interested they might be.
Because the playing field just ain't level.
Yes, exactly. And so for us to be able to say, well, you could just, it just,
Yeah, I'm only talking to Americans. There are places.
Exactly. No.
That's what I said. I'm blessed. He's saying that I.
That's the privilege.
Have privilege. My privilege is I was born in America.
Born here in the United States of America.
Right.
That's the privilege.
So I think if we were to answer our friends at ARC Forum, we would say at a global level, you're asking the wrong question.
Right. And so what is the best way to solve it?
If you're asking it at a global level, you're asking the wrong question.
Exactly.
Right.
And the best way to solve a problem is to ask the right question. That is the number one.
I'm not sure that this would be the wrong question. Because this is the question that they're presenting is very conceptual. So we kind of went at it initially as taking it as what structure or what system you can apply. And so we've deduced that, okay, well, no, the same system, there's no universally applicable system, but we've got, as Dan says, we've got a pretty damn good system here. So can we strip it down to the principles, to whatever micro level that is, and apply those principles to other cultures and other nations for them to create sort of like a donation on of just principles to create this, for them to create the system.
You mean if
works.
the people who are currently in power in those other places were willing to allow it to be unmade and remade?
Because it is humans everywhere. And yes, situations vary, but there are right principles and there are wrong principles.
Yeah. So we could at least put forward the right principles, and if
as an example,
if your friend in North Korea, what's his name, didn't want to do it, what's his name?
Kim Jong.
Kim Jong-un.
Kim
Jong, yeah.
I have a flag with him on it.
He does.
Oh, God.
It says "Live, Laugh, Love." I'm not kidding. It was given to me by Vietnamese seminarians.
Trevor has a very dark sense of irony. So we could answer this question by saying, well, okay, as a matter of fact, if you're asking what's the best way to create a better world for everybody, well, we have a pretty good system over here. It's not perfect, and at the moment we're screwing it up probably more than we ever have in history, but, well, except for that whole New Deal thing. But although that seems mild compared to the damage that we're doing now. But if you take the principles that this country was put together on, you could take those to other places. But now, mind you, those of you who are in charge in those places, you're going to have to be willing to give it up and let it be remade.
Right. Okay. So let's, again, asking the right question and getting to the root cause of either a problem or a root cause of a solution. If we take a look at the United States of America, the principles that we have here, that inner patriotism and the hard work and the American dream. What's this podcast called? Saving the Dream, right?
Yeah, I knew you'd bring it around.
Bring it right around. Why are we like that in this country? Because we in history were expelled from elsewhere that didn't want us because we were thugs and prisoners and bums and unwanted people for religious reasons or whatever else, and got dumped into this vast area
Full of resources.
Right? And they didn't, it's not like they landed on the shores of, again, Venezuela, where the weather is beautiful, and if you're hungry, you go pick a mango off of the tree. They're thrust into this horrific environment
In the winter, yeah.
Where their only way of survival was to work their badunkuses off.
Yeah.
That is what this nation was founded on. And then to fight against tyranny for our independence, that is part of the fabric of this country. That's the culture. That's our privilege. You don't have that same story elsewhere to be able to go in and say, our way of doing things here that works really well for us can just be Oh, we could teach you.
Yeah. So the point you're getting, I think, is we're not the way we are because somebody said, "Hey, here's a set of ideas that you could follow,"
and we're just better.
We kind of came out of the furnace that way, basically. And other people in other places, you can't just look at these principles and these ideas and just say, "Oh yeah, we should be like that."
Exactly. Like, take a look at the Middle East right now, right? Take a look at all of the fighting that we have. We open up our news to every day and what's going on in Gaza.
It's hard to figure out what's going on in my own damn country right now. Right? Because every freaking headline tells me what's going on in Gaza. Yeah.
But that is a part of the world that has centuries.
Yeah.
Like
not millennia.
Millennia, exactly. That's what I was just reaching for.
Thing, right.
Millennia of history that is part of the fabric of their being. And to just basically go in and say, well, y'all aren't treating each other very nice. And y'all need to love your brother and sister. And stop the fighting. It's not good.
The Southern New York accent is good. I like that.
But do the same principles apply? Do the same fundamental principles apply?
The fact is, if they follow those principles, if they could transfer themselves to follow the same principles, would it work?
Because story regardless. However you start, however country starts, whatever the state of the country. Are there fundamental principles?
Human principles is what you're asking.
No. Yeah. Fundamental principles that vary.
I think that there are. But I think that human beings, we're animals, that are going to adapt to our environments.
Yeah.
Using what?
What do you mean using what?
You're going to adapt to your environment using what?
Based on living in that environment. But I think to Dan's point that you can go in and you can show a better way. And if they can adopt those to their betterment, to their benefit.
Yeah, those principles,
then they can. But I don't think that that's...
Well, that's why I build machines for 33 countries. I got a theory. If everybody had a job and they could provide for their family, the world would be a more peaceful place.
I agree.
And so I'll put machines in.
No.
Oh, yeah.
The world would be peaceful if everybody had a job.
Oh, yeah. We can't have a jihad. I got to go to work today.
I don't think that's what drives violence at that level, though, right?
Oh, it is idle young men.
Power and greed.
Oh.
Idle young men. They're dangerous. And so that's why I put machines in countries where I don't approve of all their ethics and all their culture, but I believe in this. I was working in Russia one night, and I was so tired of them. I said, I'm the only one in this room not afraid to make a mistake. My interpreter stared at her feet. Nobody said anything. The next day they came in, they discussed it, and they said precisely. During socialist times, if you never did anything, then you never made a mistake and you were never punished.
Exactly.
And I said, well, that's great. You are now capitalist. You're going to starve. I said, now under a capitalist system, you need to take risk. You need to do something. One young man did his master's thesis on my machine.
Oh, yeah?
Another one became a manager, and some of them could never change. I can't fix them all.
Yeah.
And so what is it that you communicated
instilled
or gave
in them? Yeah.
I showed them that they had to take a risk to make that machine operate, because there's a chance that whatever they did to that machine, it wouldn't cause it to make a bad part, but that was okay. But in the old days, making a mistake was punished.
So if you distill that down to basic virtues, what you're describing is courage.
I'm describing the free market system.
No. In the quality in the person. So they had no. So if you think about principle, virtues that make people good and make people do good things, right? If you have, so these people who don't want to take a risk, that's a lack of.
They were afraid of the stick. They were afraid of punishment.
It's a lack of courage, right? It's a lack of more fortitude. Maybe is a different word that you could use. But what happens is why? And you made a comment a minute ago, which is that the violence comes from idle young men.
Young women don't start wars.
That is true. Actually,
That is true.
That is true. But men and women are the same. You didn't know that?
We are not. We are absolutely not the same.
I can't believe you didn't know. In fact,
Yeah, I've got a Y
so much
chromosome.
the same
She
that
doesn't.
We're interchangeable. You can be one day, and you could be the other one.
I know.
the other
In
day.
today's world,
It's like
right?
It's like Lego pieces.
I don't know. This sounds pretty gay.
Oh, watch out! Watch out!
So, all right. So what have we settled here? I think we've used up our time.
Y'all going global. I'm going small and personal.
Well, so
No, you made my point.
ironically, yeah, it's interesting because I've been of this mind for some considerable portion of my adult life now, which is that it's hard at a certain size. It becomes really hard to have good, productive, well-run, fair, just anything really, right? Like there's a size. Now I know you've made a career on scaling, but the reason why you have is because scaling is hard, right?
That's right.
And so, and what works well for a small group doesn't always work well, and everything that we've said right here kind of supports that. And the question that I wonder sometimes is as great as our American system is, sometimes you can't tell, but by trying to do it do we have that same trouble ourselves even at the national level? Like, is that one of the things that gives us trouble as a country, is because over our 250 years or whatever it's been, we've gradually moved from doing things primarily at a state level to trying to do things at the whole country level. And now what we have is people that have such different views about how things ought to be done that we have. You have people in the news now or in social media saying, "Oh, America's on the verge of civil war because people are so different in the way that they think about how things ought to be done." Is that happening because we're trying to do at the level of 350 million people or whatever we have, we're trying to solve the same problem that we're saying you guys can't solve at a global level. You know what I'm saying? You know where I'm going with that?
Needs to be done on a local level. What do you call the combination of state and industry? It's fascism. So you don't want the state and industry to be combined. They need to operate independently, unless you're Mussolini.
Exactly. Our founding fathers were incredibly intelligent, and thoughtful people. That they set this country up so that it was never, ever going to be some big central government telling everybody what to do.
Well, that ship has sailed.
No, I don't. I disagree. I think that we see.
Okay. Our national government now, and I hesitate to even call it a federal government, but it's more of like a national government, is way, way bigger now than it was ever imagined that it could.
I agree. But
it's like 5 million people.
The states are still, when they feel the need, are exercising their rights.
That's true.
So
I read. So there was an interesting piece that I just read yesterday or today or something by some analyst. I think it was in the Atlantic, and they were commenting on this debate, this spectacle debate between DeSantis and Newsom. But he had a really interesting perspective, which was what he said was, forget about the individual points that these guys were trying to make and who was right. He said, what it showed us was what you had here were two representatives of a red state, red states and blue states. We now have red states and blue states. And what you could see in these two, sort of very typical, like they each typify their red state, blue state points of view more or less perfectly. And what you can see is that they're so different, the way a red state looks at things and the way he said that and his point was, he said, we really shouldn't even view them as, he said we should view them as individual nations, not in practice, but like conceptually, the red states and the blue states are not like parts of the same thing anymore. They're thinking and acting. He said we should see them in our analysis. They're like different nations. They're that different. And his point was, that is something that is principally it's a relatively recent change in America, because during most of the 20th century, we had a lot of things to rally around. He said, but if you look at the entire history of America, it's actually not that different from the way things were before, where you had, a very polarized thing. But anyways, where was I going with that? So your point about the states still have the power to do things differently. And
we have the freedom to move and live in any state we damn well please. But once again, you came right around, even within our own country, to my point, my original point.
I try to do that as frequently as
Thank you, Michael. I know your whole reason is to make me happy.